What's going on, everybody? Michael Silva here. Welcome to the Figuring Out Money YouTube channel. Today's video, we're bringing on the CEO of Callinex Mines, Max Porterfield, and we're going to discuss, well, the gold and silver market. We're going to get an insider's take on the silver squeeze, on the EV market, any political significance, and the price action of gold, silver, and various other commodities. All the timestamps are going to be in the description below. Let's hop into today's episode. Max, welcome to the Figuring Out Money YouTube channel. Really appreciate you being here. Can you do us a little favor for the people that might not know who you are, is give us a little bit of a background on how you became the CEO here of Callinex Mines?
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually originally born and raised in Texas. And right out of college, I spent about 6 years of my career at a company called U.S. Global Investors that specialized in investing in natural resource companies, base metals, precious metals, as well as in the oil and gas industry. Did institutional sales, also worked with the investment team in many different functions, and then ultimately moved to Canada as an immigrated in 2012. And started off in investor relations on the issuer side, so actually working with exploration company, doing investor relations, and ultimately led to an opportunity to take over Callinex in 2014, and have been at the helm ever since that time. So very exciting industry to be in exploration, and not many people can say they ultimately find their life's passion, but I surely have.
Awesome. I'm excited to get an insider's look into this market. Let's dive into kind of the price action of gold, silver, and the various other base metals, if you want to discuss that too as well. But I'm just going to kind of just let out what's on my mind and then kind of have you take over. So first off, if you just Google the worst performing sector indice ETFs for 2021, at the top of the list, you'll probably see education tech, you'll see the Hang Seng tech, but within the top 10, you're going to see a lot of gold miners, ETFs, and gold. To me, this looks like an opportunity. And the reason why is I'm looking at certain sentiment indexes like the Holbert Gold Sentiment Index, and that's just about at that contrarian standpoint to start going long. If I look at the bullish percent index as well, which I share on my market briefs, on the weekly time frame, that's also reaching a level where it's kind of like, okay, it's time to start building positions. Can you kind of give me some insight? I would imagine gold and silver and other metals to be doing really, really well at a time like right now because of this easy monetary policy. Can we get your insights into maybe why it's not, or maybe if it's to come?
Yeah, certainly. So, we saw in the middle of the pandemic is all asset classes correlate when everyone is in peak fear. And coming out of that, the metal markets have performed quite well. You had a move from, I think, roughly $1,100, $1,200 gold up to $2,000 gold, and now you've kind of pulled back and I think built a nice support level here around $1,800 an ounce. Silver is same situation. You had a big, nice run to 28. Off some pretty low lows there in March of 2020, and now you're kind of settling back into that trading range. So I think gains can be had very, very quickly in the metals markets. You've seen that historically, and it certainly has been the case coming out of that. And more than anything, I think we're just building a healthy base to move upward off of, because aside from the shorter term fluctuations in the metal markets, what's really going to underpin that is supply demand fundamentals, and then ultimately that points to higher prices. Particularly with the big shifts in demand, whether it be in the precious metal space, but also in the base metal space as well.
I'm not one to really trade based off of politics. However, major trends can be developed by political significance. So when we take a look at Biden taking office, the House, the Senate, so a blue sweep, how do you see the market here coming up for these next 4 years?
Well, I mean, I think the market, if they keep the rates low and they keep printing more money, the market's ultimately going to rise, whether that's due to ultimately an inverse relationship with the devaluing the currency, meaning all assets obviously need to be priced higher in an inflationary environment. If there's obviously an interest rate rise, I think that'd be obviously a slowing or cooling and detrimental to the market. I think the market overall is priced that you're going to be in a low interest rate environment for a foreseeable period of time. And in terms of spending, and then this, maintaining a budget or balanced budgets, I think out of the question altogether. That's been the case over previous administration on either side of the aisle, and that certainly doesn't seem to be the case. That's going to change anytime soon. Certainly not with the Biden administration and all the policies they put forth to date.
Gotcha. Thank you. Let's talk about a little bit about copper. Copper has been a just amazing performing asset. It's up around 20% year to date. I want to specifically kind of dive into the EV market. So, Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, obviously he's a big player in all of this. And one of the quotes that I have from him is talking about copper and steel. It says, "In our cars, we do not use any rare earths originating from doubtful countries. Our engines mainly consist of copper and steel." Like I said, that's a direct quote from him. So how does the EV have a role in all of this?
Well, on the base metal side, you already have a tight market in terms of supply-demand fundamentals before that. And that's really underpinned by a lack of exploration over the previous decade for base metals discoveries or new deposits to be discovered. So that comes at a time when you have a big shift in demand. Obviously, you can have government policy, for example, the infrastructure plan, I think is going to be a big shift on demand for base metals. Anytime you have government policy that puts in place infrastructure spending, that's inherently going to be a big consumer of commodities to build all that. Then you add into the mix the government policy to put in place mandates for EV by certain milestone dates. And a lot of numbers, whether it be in the United States, UK, is around 2030, which is not that far away. And even now, you've got a big adoption rate going towards EV, which is a big shift in a demand equation for copper that's already in a very tight market environment. So it's going to lead to much higher prices. I mean, copper prices did hit all-time highs. We've pulled back from that, but ultimately, I think that this is a material shift at a time where the average kind of to come on stream from a discovery hole in copper is 7 years. So you can't just suddenly turn on production. Obviously, higher prices are going to incentivize new deposits that were uneconomic to come online. And then in terms of your question or the comment that Elon made about sourcing supply, that's also a big thing. One, from a geopolitical standpoint, supply concerns have always been an issue or something to be considered when you're looking to invest in the natural resource space. But at the same time, kind of the consciousness of what is the treatment of the individuals of the countries that the supply is coming from, the risk associated with that, but also what is the power generation to produce the metal? Because ultimately, when you're buying a Tesla, you're thinking you're doing so to have a kind of a green mindset. But oftentimes, if you look further down the supply chain, what is the power generation source for the metals? And if you look at, on average for copper, the average global copper grade is 0.5% copper. And those are going to be from big, low-grade operations that might not have the cleanest power generation. So the real thing to look for, I think, from an investment opportunity is looking for the higher grade deposits, obviously in geopolitically stable jurisdictions with a clean power source. Because, ultimately, I think that's going to trade at a premium.
Gotcha. So would you say, because if somebody looks at the chart of copper and it's made this huge run, some might say, oh, maybe I missed it. Would you consider where the price action is right now? There's still going to be a large demand for the price of copper moving higher?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, again, supply-demand fundamentals need to incentivize new production to come online. And the only way you do that is at higher prices. Right. I don't think that demand is going to suddenly fall off a cliff here because it's really been set in stone. Next, percentage of cars need to be sold with this type of, components involved in it. It's very similar in a lot of ways, a different market, but to platinum with the catalytic converter. When there's government policy put in place, so you need to really clean up the environment in terms of the pollutants from cars. All new cars need to be have catalytic converters. Catalytic converters have to have platinum, and that had an immediate impact on the price for platinum because of that big new demand shift there.
Gotcha. I have to ask you and get your insight into the renegades over there at Reddit and the silver squeeze. Do you have any insights into that? Is that even a possibility for them to squeeze the price of silver?
I mean, I think anything's a possibility in this new world that we seem to be in kind of this, movement of the herd mentality into different stocks. I mean, you can see the valuations, and that's real money flow going to different spaces. But in terms of a silver squeeze, no. But ultimately, do I think there's going to be higher prices for silver going forward? Yes. And that's going to be really, again, driven from a currency standpoint. But more importantly, like a big shift in demand for, again, consumption and technology uses for silver, which is different than gold. I mean, gold is nearly exclusively used as a currency or in jewelry. And doesn't really have as much of a technical application due to it's really the price.
Final question before we kind of talk about Callinex Mines, because I want to get to know the more inner workings of your company. Do you believe that potentially Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies has kind of taken away from the shine of some of these metals in recent trading months?
Well, I mean, I think that as Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies in general, taking a lot of the asset flows that would traditionally go into the precious metal space, 100%. I mean, the whole thesis behind buying a cryptocurrency is really because of supply. And you talk to a lot of people that own cryptocurrencies, they want to get out of the US dollar because, again, you've got politicians that really control the supply, whereas the cryptos, they're by design a limited supply source. But ultimately, I think that the precious metals are going to prevail. For thousands of years, people have looked to precious metals as a currency, and I don't think that's going to change. And in the shorter term, we're just going to have to deal with the new normal with an alternative asset class that's kind of come about. And that's natural for new industries to come there. But do I think that precious metals is going to go away? No, absolutely not. I mean, you can actually see in the volatility. I mean, look at the volatility and the downside that you saw in Bitcoin prices. And so I mean, the downside off its high was about 50% in very short order. And, people kind of overlook that in terms of managing risk. So, no, certainly, but I think the metals in the markets overall will have its day. They've had it in the past. If you look at the cycle previously in 2006, there's nothing to be afraid of really in terms of where we are in the equities, because equities, as you mentioned earlier on, haven't really performed in tandem with the price action in the metals.
Thank you for that. So the company that you run is Callinex Mines. Can you elaborate a little bit? Tell us about the company and what your company aims to create as far as value goes for its shareholders.
Yeah, certainly. So we're a base and precious metals explorer, and we're actively exploring and expanding discoveries within iconic Canadian mining jurisdictions. Namely, we have a very high-grade copper discovery called Rainbow that's about 20-minute drive outside of a town called Flin Flon, Manitoba. Flin Flon is known for these high-grade polymetallic deposits. It's been a town that's had a processing facility that's operated for almost nearly 100 continuous years and 32 mines. And this comes at a time where that town is really under jeopardy, the future of it, given that the flagship mine, the 777 mine, is shutting down next year. So August of last year, we had intersected a brand new discovery. It's called the Rainbow deposit, as I mentioned. It's a very, very high-grade copper deposit, but also carries gold, silver, and zinc as byproducts, typical of these VMS deposits, deposit style that we explore for. And what makes them unique is they're high grade. So, as I mentioned earlier, the average global copper grade is 0.5%. The grades that we're intersecting in Rainbow, on average, are north of the high 3%, maybe even low 4%. Across the intersects into the deposit to date. Again, we're doing step outs to drill that as part of a 30,000 meter drilling campaign, and that's a real potential there. And again, in terms of where are these high grade copper deposits today, and if you look at the top 10 highest grade copper mines, which to be in the top 10 highest grade copper mine, you need 3.75% copper to be in that range. They're all in really Central Africa, in the Congo, in these very geopolitically unstable areas. So to have Rainbow in Canada, in close proximity to infrastructure that's in need of a new discovery, that also has a hydroelectric power line, so clean, low-cost power in close proximity, is something we're very, very excited about. And so that's really a real focus of the company, is drilling that discovery out and looking for additional discoveries as we look to make a real impact for that community and our shareholder base. In addition to that, we also have operations in the Bathurst district of New Brunswick, where we have a sizable zinc lead asset that's in very close proximity to, again, infrastructure, rail, deep water port, road access, power. And that's a near surface deposit where through regional exploration, we had intersected near surface silver, very widely spaced, 6.8 kilometers apart. And now we're having an active drilling campaign to expand upon those two silver discoveries to see how extensive they are. And those results will be announced to the market in the near future. And to round things up, we also have a sizable copper, gold, zinc deposit in the Buckens camp of Newfoundland that we're working on updating. So again, we're actively exploring for, expanding, and developing base and precious metal-rich deposits in Canada.
That sounds amazing. For maybe some people that don't quite understand, there's certain tiers to miners, correct? There's, if I'm correct, like 3 sectors.
Right.
We have, well, can you maybe expand on that? Because I know that might be more high risk, but there's typically more reward with various of those sectors.
Right. Yeah. So there are 3 subsectors to the mining industry overall. The highest risk is the business that we're in, and that's exploration. And that's where we go out and we look to make a discovery. It's very similar to in oil and gas. If you're out there looking to make a big discovery of a new well or reservoir. In the mining business, in the biotech industry, it's very similar to drug development, research and development. As you reach different milestones, you have a big increase in valuation. And in the exploration business, we're out there to make a discovery. So that's how we increase shareholder value and drive returns for the shareholder base, is making discoveries of economic is ultimately what we're looking for, mineral deposits. And that takes time. And then the next phase would be development and then ultimately production of the 2 other phases, which are obviously very, very critical. But you have, I guess, the less sex appeal in terms of the sizzle. In those industries. So we look to make the discovery, and then ultimately a developer and a producer would come out and want to acquire us, a company like Callinex, to feed into their production pipeline moving forward.
Gotcha. How much of the company, this is something I really like to pay attention to, is owned by just insiders, institutions, and yourself? Do you have skin in the game?
Yeah, no, I certainly have skin in the game. I mean, something I'm very, very passionate about. In terms of insiders and close associates, are about 25% of the float today. I myself personally own under just under 5% personally, as well. My family also has a large position in the company. And then we also have significant shareholders that are from the institutional investor base. Resource Capital Funds has been a very long-term shareholder of the company, owns just under 8% of the company, and another large resource-centric fund here out of Vancouver owns just under about 6%, called Delbrook. So we've got a mix of both, obviously, insiders, institutional and retail investors, and a very tight capital structure with 13.1 million shares. So again, we're very excited about what we're up to and believe in what we're doing.
Yeah. Wow. Going into the end of the year here, we have a few more months left. Anything that you're specifically focused on?
Well, we're drilling. So we've been drilling all year, and we're quite excited about that. We've got a 30,000 meter drilling campaign that we're midway through, that we've announced results so far. So there's going to be continued results out of the Pine Bay and Rainbow drilling in Manitoba near Flin Flon there that we mentioned earlier. That's going to be consistent news flow, and we're going to look to expand the Rainbow discovery, continue to do that, as well as test regional targets to find a sister discovery. And then in New Brunswick, we have the active ongoing exploration for the silver. We're following up that, so there'll be healthy news flow coming out of New Brunswick with the results of the drilling there. And then in in Newfoundland, in the Buckens district, we're going to have an updated resource we're planned on announcing at Point Leamington, which we're quite excited about. And then also some drill targeting there that we'll be kind of going over at that time.
Awesome. Just to kind of wrap things up here, what would be defined as a successful year for Callinex? I know you kind of just touched on it, but maybe as far as shareholders, if we're looking at your website, which if you can tell us where to go for that, maybe specific news flow that they can keep an eye on to determine whether or not we're seeing success.
Well, certainly we put out some news this morning. I would definitely go check check that out. We put out a very updated some drill results on our Rainbow deposit drilling that I mentioned. We put a headline number today of 37 meters of 6% copper. Again, exceptionally high grade copper. That's a very wide interval as we step out and expand the Rainbow deposit. And we'll continue to release drill results from Rainbow, as well as results from the drilling at Nash Creek to keep an eye out for silver, and then an updated resource at Point Leamington. And that can all be found on our website at callinex.ca, where you can also find our contact information. If you're interested in becoming a shareholder of the company, you can do so in the United States on the OTC. We trade under the ticker CLLXF. And then in Canada, where we have our primary listing under the ticker CNX on the Toronto Venture Exchange.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate that. We went through the entire interview without using the word transitory.
Yeah.
We're talking about gold and silver, so good for us there. Is there any way that people can reach out to you? Are you on Twitter? Are you on other platforms? Or is it just...
we're on Twitter. I mean, we have a Twitter account, but I mean, the best way is through email or phone, which you can find that contact information on our website.
Cool. And then for everybody that's watching, I'll list that here in the description. Thank you, Max, for coming in, telling us a little bit about the markets and also Callinex. We really do appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been great.